हर समय कृष्ण का ध्यान करते चलो, अच्युतम केशवम कृष्ण दामोदरम राम नारायणम जानकी वल्लभम। याद आएगी उनको कभी ना कभी, कृष्ण दर्शन तो देंगे कभी ना कभी। अच्युतं केशवं कृष्ण दामोदरं रामनारायणं जानकी वल्लभम। Thank you.
Awesome in Abby's language. And Prakriti, now we have that means one more for the
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you.
Over to you.
Awesome. That was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very nice. Very nice. I can see Pankti also on the call. Someone special has come. Someone special has time. Wow. Very nice. So I'm going to talk to her separately about this. Anyways, right? So she's not even responding. See? Okay. So good morning, all of you. So I hope you had a good morning. You had your breakfast. You had the good night rest. Yeah, so welcome on this call. I think so. This would be the last session in terms of our social styles. Hopefully, we will be able to cover it. So let me present my slides for all of you. Google Meets is amazing. It teaches me new things every time. I do not know what it is. I always feel lost in Google Meets. Very unlike Google. Okay, so where do I go? I go here. This has my emails there. You don't want to see my emails. Okay, so you have, what do you have on the screen? Can you just unmute and say?
I can't see anything.
Wow, even I can't see anything. Isn't that awesome? Wonderful. Okay, let me do it one more time. I think so now it should come. Now, can you see something now?
Yes, now it's there.
Yeah. So there was some traffic jam on the way. Okay, anyways, right? So I hope all of you can hear me, all of you can see the slides, and welcome on a Saturday morning on this call. Sorry for pulling you out of your beds early in the morning, and thank you for starting on time. It is very important that if it is 9 o'clock, it means 9 o'clock, right? So we cannot be late, especially all young boys and girls. One of the things that it's a desire, it's a dream in my heart that we all learn to be disciplined and learn to be punctual no matter what we do, right? So thank you for being there on time, and thank you for a lovely prayer. So as we joined, I was talking about the importance of remaining in a flow, and how there is life in flowing. Nothing to do with the session, but I just mentioned that, and I said I'll complete it once I start talking. So how many of you know about the Dead Sea? You can unmute and share your thoughts. Do you know about the Dead Sea?
We talked about it last time, I guess.
Okay,
That
so we
it's a
talked about
lake with high salt values, so you can't sink there.
that's right. That's right. And did I speak about the Sea of Galilee also?
I guess, yes.
Okay. So anyone remembers? At least one remembers that I spoke about the Dead Sea. Okay. Anyways, so let me uh, share it with you one more time. There's no harm in hearing it again. So think of a bottle of water, and from that bottle of water, you pour water into two glasses, and the two glasses are clean glasses. They don't have anything in it. So it's you pour the water into those two clean glasses. Now, if I were to ask you, would the properties in the two glasses be the same? The chemical properties of water in the two glasses, would it be the same? So I'm not looking at the chat box. So if you can just unmute and give me your answer.
Yes.
Correct. Right. So the because the source is the same, the chemical properties of the two glasses will also be the same. Water in the two glasses will also be the same. Now, I spoke about Dead Sea. Anyone knows what is the source of water that is there in the Dead Sea? It's actually a lake. It's not a sea, but I don't know why people call it a sea. But nevertheless, where does the water in the Dead Sea come from? Any
Essentially,
idea?
essentially rain and the hills, uh,
Okay.
snow melting.
Okay. So that's a good answer, Patel sir. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. So the
I think by
water.
rain.
Okay. The water which is there in Dead Sea comes from its source, which is River Jordan.
Oh,
Now,
yes.
River Jordan also gives water to Sea of Galilee. Now, the Dead Sea and the Sea of Galilee are on the same topography. They are say on the same ground. The land is the same. So the chemical properties of the land is the same. Now just think about that example that I shared, water a bottle, and then we pour water into two different glasses. Now, how come the water in Dead Sea is so much filled with salt that you, even if you want to drown, you cannot drown? Hence, it is called Dead Sea. There is no life there. And the other sea, which is also a lake, but we call it a sea, Sea of Galilee is full of life. It has, if I'm not mistaken, more than 34 different types of lives, marine lives in the Sea of Galilee. While the source is the same, while the geography is the same, while the topography is the same, everything is the same, then what makes the difference? You know what makes the difference? The Dead Sea, the water does not flow. There is only an inlet, there is no outlet. And because it does not flow, there is a higher evaporation that happens, and hence this salt content is high and all those things that I spoke about. Whereas Sea of Galilee is a flowing river. So whatever comes into it goes out of it. So one of the lessons that I want to start today is be a giver in life. The more you will give, the more you will have. But we are not we don't give joyfully. And one of my hope is that all young boys and girls, when you grow up, be of help to someone, give cheerfully. God loves a person who gives cheerfully. And when you give, you will be a person full of life. And when you only take, and I know people who forget about taking other things are also taking credit. So someone else would have worked, but they want to eat away that credit also. So they take the credit also. And anyways, right? So there is maybe I'll talk about this in depth. What are the life lessons out of it? So we need to be givers. We need to be like Sea of Galilee. We should never be a Dead Sea. There are so many people in this world who need help. There are millions of people who don't even have food on the table. There are millions of people who do not have a pair of proper clothes to cover their body. And look at all the blessings that we have. Look at all the privileges that we have. Go out and see the struggles of people, and then ask yourself, am I being a Dead Sea or am I being a Sea of Galilee? Yeah, so that was what I wanted to share. Again, nothing to do with the session. Okay, so welcome back to the, I think so, the last session on social styles. and we covered the 4 social styles. We covered the various attributes of a driver and how it is diagonally opposite from that of an amiable person, how a driver is high on assertiveness and low on responsiveness, whereas an amiable person is high on responsiveness and low on assertiveness. We saw how an expressive is diagonally different from an analytical person. An expressive person will be high both on assertiveness and on responsiveness, whereas an analytical person will be low both on responsiveness and assertiveness, right? So I'm sure you would have started noticing a few things in the behaviors of others and also your own behavior. At the end of this call, I will share the questionnaire as well. I think so. I've shared it with Patel sir. For those who have asked from me, I have not been able to share it, but I will share it today. And you complete
I have got
the
it.
questionnaire and sorry.
I have got it. You sent it to me.
Yeah, got it. Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we can put it onto a group. You can put it onto the Uvale group, and for anyone else needs it, you can message to me directly. I'll share it with you. And whenever you do a questionnaire, you should not think too much about the answer that you're about to capture. The first thought that crosses your mind, it's also called answer on impulse, because if you give it a thought, you will skew the results of the questionnaire, because these are all psychometric tools, and it will give you the result based upon the input. So if the input is an idealistic input, it will give you a result which would be an ideal result, and we don't live in an ideal world, right? So whenever you do questionnaires, especially in terms of social styles, communication styles, personality styles, and we're going to do a few of these, my request is don't give it too much of thought. Don't say, okay, is situation mein main kya karunga ya karungi. So it's not about an ideal thing. The point is, what am I doing? What do I do versus what I should do? So there's a difference between that, right? So I'll share that questionnaire with you. So today I want to talk about something which is again, which has a questionnaire. I will share this with you as well. Something which is very close to my heart. I just love this concept of Johari window, and I personally have benefited from what I've learned from this, and something which I always advocate and recommend that everyone should follow. So this Johari window is a brainchild of 2 people, Joseph and Harry. And I'm sure there would be an Indian person who made Johari out of Joseph and Harry. So Johari is coming from 2 names, Joseph and Harry, right? And those 2 people, I think so. This was the early 50s, if I'm not mistaken. They brought this concept in which it has 2 sides to it. Number one, things that I know and things that I do not know. So known by self and known by others. So unknown to self and known to others. That is one parameter. The second is known by others and unknown by others. So when we do it in a classroom, I think so it is far more effective because I can use a whiteboard and anyways. So the first quadrant will be the quadrant which is called the open quadrant, where things like it could be anything that you know about yourself and others also know. For example, if I ask you, tell me something about me. So when you think of Anand, what comes to your mind? You may say that Anand is punctual. As an example, he's there always on time. So you know it, and even I know it. So think of all those attributes, behaviors that we demonstrate, that we know, our mindset that we are aware of, and others also aware of. That is the open quadrant. The second is where we have to work. Now, this is where feedback is important, because you're talking about a blind area or a blind spot. So things that are known by others but unknown by self. So When I work with people, when we work together, there will be many things that you notice about me that I may not know. For example, I don't come from a training background. I don't come from an HR background. I am not a facilitator by choice. I've only learned how to facilitate and how to do sessions in the latter part of my life. I never knew that I could talk to so many people, I could engage with so many people, I could scale up my influence, so on and so forth. I never knew that. I was a salesperson. I'm still a salesperson at my core. But it was one of my bosses who helped me identify my blind spot. I did not know that I have the skills to do what I'm doing currently, but it was shown to me by someone else. And that person is still one of my three mentors. And how this happened is in my office, even in sales, you have to do a lot of training in terms of product training, in terms of the sales process training and all of that. So I used to do that for my team. And we had a small team, about 10 or 12 member team. And I would do it for my team and, do it with a lot of passion. And people used to enjoy it. They had fun in my sessions. And they always said, there is something different when you come and talk. And then slowly my other colleagues in the office started delegating their trainings to me. They would come and say, why don't you take our training as well? So my team of 12 would also now have the people from my colleagues team. So the 12 became 20 and the 20 became 30 and the 30 became 40. And so they used to love them. And then in one of my review meetings with my boss, he asked me that why don't you take up training as a career? I said, come on, give me a break. You must be kidding me. I cannot train. And then he gave me a lot of logical answers and tried to influence me. To cut the long story short, I said, okay, I will give it a shot. And I would continue doing my sales work. And at night, I would prepare myself for sessions that I was supposed to take. And those were not just sales sessions. They were sessions across various domains. So I would come to office at night and do mock sessions. I would get into a room, I would close my eyes and I would visualize that there are 30, 40, 50, 100 people sitting in the hall and I'm delivering a session. So I never knew that I could do what I'm doing now. So what did that blind spot do? What did that blind area do? It was restricting me and limiting me in terms of my reach, my scale and my scalability of what I do. The word that impacted me that my boss told me in one of those sessions, he said, you need to scale up. Right now, your inputs are only to a limited people of 30 or 40. You need to scale up. And that is how I was able to expand my employability. I was able to expand my marketability. I was able to enhance my skill sets. And today I can do more than what I was able to do yesterday. So identification of blind spots is a fantastic concept. It helps us grow in life. It helps us go deeper in our professional life. It helps us do more than what we would do otherwise. So we'll talk more about this and how do we identify the blind spots? What are some of the things that I do on a regular basis? I do it once a year. I'll share more about it. And also give you an example for some of you who understand cricket and who understand or follow cricket. You must have heard a cricketer's name called Sanath Jayasuriya. Sanath Jayasuriya was one of the best opening batsmen, attacking batsmen who played the game of cricket. He represented Sri Lanka. Right, I'm sure most of you would recollect the name Sanath Jayasuriya. Now, not many of you would know that he was selected to represent his country not basis his batting skills, but basis his bowling skills. He was a left-arm spinner. And he would come and bat at number 8 or number 9, similar to a Bhuvaneshwar Kumar in the current Indian team, or Umesh Yadav in the current Indian team. right? And that is how the story was, and life was going on merrily. And one day, Sunil Gavaskar, again, I'm sure you would know this name, he spotted some talent in Sanat Jayasuriya. And he had a conversation with Arjuna Ranatunga. And this is around the 1996 time where the World Cup also happened. Again, to cut the long story short, Arjuna Ranatunga approached Sanat Jayasuriya and proposed that why don't you open the batting? And he said, "Are you kidding me or what? I have never opened the batting even in school cricket. How do I do it at international level and that too at the World Cup? I have never opened in my life. But if you want me to do it, I'll do it. But don't blame me if I mess it up." Now, if you check statistics, Sanat Jayasuriya changed the way one-day cricket was played. He was probably one of the first batsmen to start hitting over the top, along with this New Zealand batsman. I'm forgetting his name. He was also a left-hander. And then we had Kalu Vitharna from Sri Lanka, and those were the people who first, started using the what do we call power play for the first 15 odd overs in a 50-over match. So think about this example as well. What if Sanat Jayasuriya was not told about his blind spot? Yes, he would have still played cricket. He would have still represented Sri Lanka, but we would not know him as an attacking batsman. So he would not have fulfilled the potential that he had. And if you can go to Google, check his performance, he ended his career scoring close to 21,000 international runs. 21,000 international runs is not a joke. With due respect to a Bhugneshwar Kumar or an Umesh Yadav or a Harbhajan Singh, I don't think so they will end their career scoring 21,000 runs. So a blind spot helps you become more than what you are currently. It helps you go deep and wide in terms of your capabilities, in terms of what you do. So it's a fantastic, and I can share some more examples. Steve Smith, if you know, he is currently the top ranked test batsman in the world. He's from Australia. Steve Smith did not start his career as a batsman. He was a leg spinner. Virendra Sehwag, I'm sure all of you know him. He's a good friend of mine as well. And he was a middle order batsman. He was not an opening batsman. But someone told him that you can do this as well. And above all, think about my favorite Indian and my favorite sports person. One of my favorite, along with Roger Federer, is Sachin Tendulkar. Sachin Tendulkar never wanted to become a batsman. You can check this out. He wanted to become a fast bowler, a tear-away fast bowler. And someone spotted his batting skills, and that someone was Dennis Lillee. And he told Sachin, you should not be wasting time trying to become a bowler. I think so, you were born to bat. And today we know Sachin Ramesh Tendulkar as a god of cricket. Right? So for me to be the best version of myself, for you to be the best version of yourself, for us to be working at top potential, I think so we need someone to identify the blind spot in us, and that will make us better and help us do bigger and better things, help us go above and beyond in whatever we are doing. The third quadrant is the hidden quadrant, that I know things about myself, but others don't know. For example, there would be many things that I know about me, but others don't know about me. So I'll have to tell others. And obviously, there will be something that we have that we don't want to share with anyone. So that will be those private moments that each one of us have in our lives, right? So you will have a slight portion of your life which you may not want to share with others. But yes, I should be more open than hidden, right? So how do I do that? I will have to disclose. I will have to tell more about myself. The more you reveal yourself, the more you disclose yourself, I think so that's how trust gets established. And the last quadrant is one of my favorite quadrants. It's also called the unknown area. Now, things that are not known to self and things that are not known to others also. So this is also called the risk quadrant. This is also called the quadrant of potential. And this is where we do shared risks, that we are in it together. You are not doing it alone. So when you take the plunge of doing something different and you take that plunge in faith, that's where the unknown area gets developed. Right. So I'll talk more about each of these four quadrants. Before I do that, a question. Out of these four quadrants, which quadrant do you think should be the biggest in terms of size? You can unmute yourself and give me an answer. Out of these four quadrants.
Yeah. Good morning.
Good.
It's open area, open.
Correct. You are again in big form. So you start with, like Surendra Sehwag would always start the innings with a 4. So I like your form. You are always in top form, and that's the right answer. The open area. Thank you so much. Thank you. 11, right? If I remember the name.
Correct. Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice, 11. Thank you. Now, the question to others is, while I agree with what 11 is saying, that yes, the open area should be the largest in terms of size, why do you think that should happen? Number one, and how do I make it large? So, two questions: why and how?
Morning, Anand.
Good morning.
The open area should be more because if we have a more of a hidden or a blind area, we have to pretend, right? Like in front of others, we are someone else, and in front of other people, we are someone else entirely. So open free area allows us to be our more genuine self.
Okay, Albas, sorry to cut you short, but that's a quick correction, a small correction. While I'm in the blind area, or I'm not pretending. I don't know about it, right? So pretending is when you're hiding something, right? So that is not the quadrant. It's not that I know something about myself and I am not sharing it with others. Like Sanat Jaiswalia did not hide it with others that he can bat. I give you my example. I never hid that fact from my bosses that I can also train, but I never knew I could train. So it is not about pretending.
Potential
Similarly,
then.
when we talk about the hidden area, that things I know and things others know. So it is a two-way street. Unless there is the relationship, unless there is trust in that relationship, I would not want to open myself. That is one. Second, it is also very cultural. So there are some people, especially Indians, who we open up very fast. Because we are emotional people. We share a lot about our personal lives with others, even if we may not know that person too well, but we still are vulnerable people and we open ourselves. But you look at Germans. I've got the chance to work with a few Germans. They will never talk anything personal. Right, so they are only task, and task. They are, at least the people that I have worked with, they are very, very direct in their communication. They will only talk about the task, and their communication will be like how you communicate on walkie-talkie, just short words. So it is nothing to do with pretending. But I like your attempt. Thank you for attempting it. But just a quick correction.
Yeah, Abhi, should I add something?
Yes.
Yeah, because what in Sanskrit says that manasa vacha karmana, when I have integrity in myself, I am at peace of my mind. There is harmony in me. So it add to my performance, it add to my interpersonal relations, and it add to my social acceptance also.
That's right.
Is it
That's
okay?
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. I like that. That's right.
Yeah,
okay, so anyone else? Why do you think it is important for us to have a a very large open area.
So that we can use, we can fulfill our potential, realize what our potentials are.
Okay. Correct. So that's a good answer. So it helps us realize a potential. Okay. What else?
More like potential can meet opportunities, because now when others also know about it, maybe you'll be able to get those opportunities easier.
Okay. That's again a different way, a different tangent of looking at it. That's interesting. That's right as well. Who else would want to share?
If
Okay.
we are open, then relationship will be developed.
Fantastic, Hasmukh bhai. And I know you as one person who is very, very good in building relations, right? So I have known you for many, many years, right? So yes, Hasmukh bhai, you are right in that sense. Okay, so the reason why we need to have a large open area is adding to what all of you have already said, is it builds trust. So there is nothing that I am hiding for myself, and I'm able to expand myself. As I said, I will be able to expand my skill sets. I'll be able to do more. So I have to be more so I can do more. I have to do more to have more. So, this is a sequence taught by Zig Ziglar. He's one of my favorite authors. You can read a couple of books written by, he has written about 20 odd books, but two books which are one of my favorites is Over the Top and See You at the Top, in which he talks about this concept. I have to be more so I can do more. And when I do more, I will have more. Right. And I think so. I will be a mile deep and a mile wide person when I have a larger open area. Otherwise, we generally will be an inch deep and a mile wide person. That means I may have superficial knowledge of quite a few things, but I'll not have the depth of knowledge of quite a few things, right? So that is one. The second question is, how do I enlarge my open area? Because remember, the borders are fixed. You cannot increase the size of the square. So how do I increase the size of the one of the four quadrants, while the quadrant itself cannot be enlarged?
I think the answer is in here on the slide itself, that if you ask more and if you tell more, so it'll go down and it'll spread wider.
Okay, that's right. So that's right. So what I'll have to do is I will have to reduce the areas of the other three quadrants. So if I shrink the blind area, the open area increases. If I shrink the hidden area, the open area increases more. If I reduce my unknown area, the open area increases. Right? So it is, I need to seek feedback. As you can see on the slide, when I seek feedback, I will get to know few things that I did not know about myself. And that is one way of reducing the blind area. But my question to everyone is, do you solicit feedback? Are you actively seeking out feedback? Are you reaching your family and friends? Like, I did this session on SWOT analysis couple of Saturdays back. And in that, I had asked you to make your own SWOT analysis. I had asked you to go and talk to five people personally and five people that you know professionally. And I had asked you to go and ask them a set of questions that I had shared with you. I'm not sure how many of you have done that. Right? So unless I go and ask, how do I know? And one of the things that I've said a couple of times, pardon me for that repetition, inspiration minus perspiration adds up to nothing. Thomas Edison famously said, success is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. The knowledge that we are gaining through these sessions, not just my sessions, but so many sessions that you may be attending, the knowledge that you gain, are you applying that knowledge? If you don't apply that knowledge, it is called learning waste. It does not help. Right. So one of the things that I would advise all of you, everyone under the sound of my voice, is to reach out. And I have this cadence that on the 31st of July midnight or early morning on the 1st of August, I share a feedback survey with everyone that I know. And some of you who have been on a WhatsApp group with me for about a year or more would know it. In my office, I would send an email to everyone with whom I have at least exchanged an email once in the last 12 months. And I have a questionnaire with them, which I share with them, and I ask them questions such as, what are the areas that I am doing well and I should keep on doing? What are the areas that I need to improve upon? What are the things that I should start doing? What are the things that I should stop doing? If anyone wants that format, you can drop me a WhatsApp message. I'll be happy to share that with you. So seek feedback, and it will reduce your blind area by revealing your blind spots. Seek feedback, very important. And if you're making notes, please make a note of this particular sentence. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. You can say feedback is the lunch of champions also. You can say that it is the dinner of champions also, no matter what meal you would want to refer it to as. But feedback is the breakfast of champions. And this was told by one of my favorite modern management gurus called Dr. Ken Blanchard, the person who wrote that book, 1 Minute Manager. So are we seeking feedback? We need to seek feedback, right? Very important. So seeking feedback will reduce, collapse a part of the blind area and extend, increase the open area. Now, if you look at the quadrant, which is the hidden area, what will I have to do? I'll have to have self-disclosure. So once I start discussing that, okay, this is something that I can do. Others don't know, but you know. Let me give you an example. Again, giving a cricket example. Some of you don't like cricket. Please don't hate me for that.
AB, can you present again? AB, please present again.
So, okay, so I'll share it again. Now, the third quadrant is the hidden area. Now, hidden area is comprised of things that I know, but others don't know. So let me give you an example for you to understand this even better. And I'll again take a cricketing example. So for those who don't follow cricket, please don't hate me for that, because you will say he always gives cricketing examples. But I only know cricket and I know a bit of other sports. I don't understand movies and all of that. I don't understand Netflix. So sorry, I don't have those examples. Yeah, so pardon me for that. So let me give you an example of one of my favorite Indians and favorite sports person one more time. You know his name. He is Sachin Tendulkar. Now,
AB,
India
present
was...
again. AB, present again, please.
I have to present again. Okay, sir. I will present again. I love people on the call because they're making me better on Google Meets. Because what you do repeatedly, you become good at it. Okay, is it there? Is the slide on?
Yes.
Super, very nice. So are you still able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, super, thank you. So India was touring New Zealand. This is, I think so, early 90s. If I'm not mistaken, this was the 94 series or whatever it is. So it was in the 90s. and we were playing a one-day match against New Zealand. And New Zealand conditions are very, very challenging conditions. It is a part of the SENA, SENA, that is South Africa, England, New Zealand, and Australia. And not many batsmen from the subcontinent have a decent record playing in those conditions, because those are very alien conditions. Those are very, very different conditions from the low bouncing wickets in India or Sri Lanka or Pakistan, that matter, the subcontinent. So the toss had happened, the match was on, and the opening batsman was Navjot Singh Sidhu. I'm sure you know him. And he had a neck sprain, a very bad neck sprain. And he said, I cannot even move my neck, so there is no way I can bat. And you can't change the playing 11 after you have announced the playing 11. So Mohammad Azharuddin was the captain, and Anshuman Gaikwad was the coach / the manager of the Indian cricket team. So they called for an emergency meeting, and they said, now what to do? So here was a small boy with that childish voice when asked that who will do the opening, who will open the innings. So his answer was, "Main karega." Typical Mumbai Hindi. Mumbai Hindi is very different. "Main karega." And he was shutted out. He was told that you cannot open. You're a middle order batsman. And the technique that you need for a middle order batsman is very different from the technique you need if you're an opening batsman. And the response that Sachin gave was, I am ready. So people did not know that he was building skills to open the innings as well, but he knew that he was ready, and the rest, as they say, is history. And in that match, when the ball was seaming and swinging like a banana, he played against the best of the best, like Chatfield, Richard Hadley, Denny Morrison, and the others. He scored about 84 runs in 40 odd balls. And remember, at that time, there were no fielding restrictions. There were no restrictions on bouncers. It was a tough condition. It was tough for batsmen. Today, anyone can come and hit, because there are no fielders outside the 30-yard circle most of the time. So what happened to Sachin's career? It expanded. And then he went on to score 51 one-day hundreds. And I think so, except for one or two, all his hundreds came opening the innings. And he went on to score, if I'm not mistaken, close to 18,000, 19,000 one-day runs. And that record, I don't think so, will be broken. That is what happens when you self-disclose. Yes, I can do this. For those of you who are listening to me, and if you are working somewhere, you need to go and tell your bosses, you need to go and tell your stakeholders, your seniors, that yes, apart from what I do on my daily basis, what is there on my plate, I can do a lot more. But are we self-disclosing? That's the question. Or are we wanting to stay in the comfort zone? And it is also taking a risk. But remember, I spoke about agility and adaptability when we spoke about mindset a few Saturdays back. And then a combination of agility and adaptability will create a culture of change. And I said adaptability is able to apply the learnings in new challenging situations. Agility, and we spoke about learning agility, all of that. You can refer your notes of that session. So we need to self-disclose. We need to tell others. So when I'm disclosing more about myself, when I'm telling more about myself to others, I will be able to shrink the hidden quadrant. The hidden quadrant reduces in its size, and that builds or makes the open quadrant even bigger. And the last is our unknown area. So how do I shrink that quadrant? What is the thing that I'll have to do? I'll have to go on a path which is called self-discovery and shared discovery. You will have to take risks. And I also call this quadrant the quadrant of potential. Because if I don't try new things, I will never know. Like one of my favorite sentences, which I keep on telling myself is, you never know unless you try. But the challenge with most of us is that we quit before we start. And the society is not going to allow you to do new things, audacious things. It is like, why do you want to change it when it is not broken? चाले है तो चालवा दो, चलता है तो चलने दो. That is the mindset of people. Read that book, which is titled "Our Iceberg is Melting." It's a fantastic book made from the story of penguins. The title of that book, "Our Iceberg is Melting." I'm sure most of you would have read that book. Who Moved My Cheese? So I will have to get into the unknown area by doing things which I will never knew. So maybe I will succeed, maybe I will not. But who is stopping me from attempting? So let me give you an example of Reliance. And you may have read or heard our chairman say yesterday that Reliance has achieved its target to become a net debt-free company 9 months before the target. 9 months before the target. And in the last 58 days, we have raised close to 1,69,000 crores. I don't even know how many zeros are there in this number. 1,69,000 crores when the whole world was locked down. People would say this is not possible, but करके तो देख ले यार, कोशिश तो कर लो. Sometimes you will win and others time you will learn. And we raised close to 1,16,000 crores for Geo platforms. We raised 53,250 crores from the right issue. And if you add 7,000 crores that we got from the stake that BP bought in our petro retail venture, it is more than 1,75,000 crores. 1,75,000 crores is not even the GDP of some countries. And here is one man saying that I committed it to the shareholders, I committed it in public, and I need to honor that. So we got into an unknown area. Reliance has never been a company known for forging partnerships. We have always gone alone. While we will have collaborations with other companies, but we have never sold stakes of our company to outside people. So this is a new way of working. The new Reliance will be a Reliance that is built on partnerships. And you see the result? But what are most of the other companies doing? ओ हम तो घर में लॉकडाउन हो गए हैं, यहाँ पर सब बंद हो गया है, अब कुछ हो नहीं सकता है. They are all playing that weeping cassette, because the only thing they're doing is watching news on television. They are watching stupid things on social media and listening to all kinds of negativity. They are only talking about the bad things that they are happening. And whatever you talk, it will happen to you. Whatever you think will happen to you. Whether you like it or you don't like it, there is power in thought, there is power in the spoken word. But let's check our language. Is our language a language of possibility? Or is the language that we speak to self and others a language of limitations? Always talking, "Aiya awu thei gyu, ta awu thei gyu, idhar aisa ho gaya, udhar aisa ho gaya, itne log mar gaye, itne log ye ho gaye, itne cases ho gaye." Come on, move on. Let's talk possibility. Let's take risk. No risk, no gain. and I would want to challenge everyone under the sound of my voice is to start taking risk in life and be ready to fail. I was telling someone yesterday that one of the things I hope I'll be able to teach you is how do you fail in life. And all of you young, bright boys and girls, you have never failed in life. You have not flunked a class. So you don't know what failure is. But let me tell you, life is not a linear curve. It's a yo-yo curve. You will be up one day, down the other day, and you will remain down for most of your life. I have remained down most of my life. I have failed more than I have ever succeeded. I never say that I have succeeded, but whatever little I was able to accomplish is after many periods of time spent in the valley days. Only then you get mountain days. But are we doing shared discovery? Chalo milke karte hain. And let me share the business philosophy with which Dhiru Bhai started Reliance. And his business philosophy way back in 1958 when Reliance started was profit will be ours, loss will be mine. He did not know how to do trading of spices when he started Reliance. He did not know trading of yarn when he started trading in yarn. He knew nothing about manufacturing of textiles when Vimal was set up in 1965. We did not know anything about IPO when we raised money from the public in 1977. We did not know anything about polyester when we set up our first polyester plant in 1982. We did not know anything about refining when we conceived and conceptualized refining and marketing in 1993. And I can go on and on and on. But when I'm getting into that unknown area, that's how you grow into the best version of yourself. Just to help you visualize what I'm trying to share with you, young boys and girls, it's like just try to visualize yourself on a railway platform. You have just finished your graduation, the so-called education. While the education should never stop, it only stops after you stop breathing. But the formal education is over. You have a degree on your hand and you're standing on a railway platform. And what do we all do? We board the first train that comes on that platform, not knowing whether that train is going to take me to my career, whether that train is headed to the destination that is for me. Is it a train that is in my area of passion? But we just board the train. We just board that train. Maybe it's social pressure. Maybe it is peer pressure. I don't know what it is. But do you have the faith that the train that you want to board will come? And trust me, it does come. And then you start working. The weeks become months. The months become years. The years become decades. And then you retire. And then you wonder, what did I do all my life? And as per a survey by Gallup, Gallup is an international organization. You can check it on Google. As per Gallup, about 80%, a bit more than 80%, I'm giving a round figure, about 80% of employees in the world are disengaged in their jobs. They don't like what they do. Close to 15% of the people are actually working in their area of passion and they love what they do. So why do you want to do something that you don't like to do? And then you will become negative, you will crib, you will complain, and you will condemn. And you will start comparing yourself with others. Uska TV mere TV se bada kyun ho? Uski car meri car se badi kyun ho? And all those nonsense things that we start doing because we are not exploring. Remember, I said this sentence, I don't know, a couple of Saturdays back, that when there is no enemy on the inside, the enemy outside can do us no harm. But there is so much of fear, there is so much of doubt in our heads and our minds and in our hearts that I don't think so we even enter into quadrant 4. Forget about reducing it. So the quadrant of potential will require me to do self-discovery, we together to do shared discovery. चलो मिल के कुछ करते हैं. And I just love that statement of Dhirubhai Ambani, where he would go to investors and say, I have knowledge, you have the money. I don't have money. And business में अगर profit होगा तो हम share करेंगे. And if there is a loss in the business, I will bear it. That's how it is. That's how great organizations are formed. That's how great careers are made. They are never made in the comforts of a comfort zone. And many of you, sorry to say that, many of you only come and listen to me, don't do anything that I'm telling you. Many of you have not read a book in the last 1 week. I can challenge you on that. Many of you have not done any certification program in the last 168 hours. Between last Saturday when we finished at around the same time and now 168 hours have passed. What have we done in that 168 hours? Have we grown? And याद रखिए, लोहा जो होता है, लोहे को आप यूज करके वो खत्म हो जाएगा, या अगर पड़े रहेगा तो उसमें जंग लग जाएगा और खत्म हो जाएगा. तो आप अपने दिमाग के साथ क्या कर रहे हो? એને વાપરી રહ્યા છો કે ઘસાઈ ગયા છે? What is happening to our mind? And that is where I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to get into the unknown area. Again, don't get me wrong. Don't take blind risk. Don't say, I want to test the gravity, the law of gravity by jumping from the 10th floor of a building. Don't do that. You have to do your due diligence. You have to study. You have to do your research. And then take that plunge. Like I have been getting calls from a few of my friends and people who have attended my sessions in the last 2 or 3 years, and they said that Anand bhai, आप सही बोल रहे थे कि रिलायंस का शेयर ले लेना चाहिए, तब तो 600 रुपए का मिल रहा था, आज 1750 का हो गया है. मैं बोलता हूँ अभी भी ले ले भाई. But indecision is killing us. And Johari window is just an awesome concept. So as I kind of close this part, I will share a questionnaire of Johari window with all of you as well as sharing the questionnaire of our social styles. And if you link the social styles to Johari window, I think so an expressive person and a driver will take more risk as compared to an analytical person or an amiable person. So it may be your style, but then I will have to flex my style. I said that in the session last Saturday that we will have to be flexible, which is so very important. Yeah, so that's what Johari window is. Any questions on this? Let me go to the chat window. Yeah, I am learning. I can now, okay, now I am able to use the chat box. Okay, so any questions, thoughts, comments on this? Hello. There is someone who has asked that how to overcome a fear of failure and rejection. My dear friend, just do it. Jadhav Saab, you have to do it. The only way to overcome fear of rejection. And the more we stay in a mode of no action, that is only going to manifest more. It is only going to increase. Okay, so tell me if
Anand, I have a question.
Sorry, I could not hear you. So sorry.
I have a question.
Hanji.
Yeah, so how can we know that the feedback we are getting from someone else is the right one?
So why do you want to do that, right? So just take the feedback. You're not talking to one person, you're talking to multiple person, right?
Yeah.
So if you're only talking to one person, then what you're saying, may be true, because then you are making a judgment from only one or two people. So when we do sample surveys, you are a management student, so you should know that when you do surveys, you don't do a survey with 5, 10, 15, 20 people. You have a large sample size. And if most of the people are saying something which you are not agreeing with, so that's a blind spot.
Okay.
So remember, between intention and perception, it is perception that is real.
Okay.
You may not like the statement, but all of you remember this, make a note of it, write it down. Between your intent and perception, what matters? It is perception that matters. So make sure you're building the right perception. Very important. Very, very important. Right? So reach out to people, ask for people, and obviously you're not going to talk to any Tom, Dick, and Harry on the road. Right? So you're going to reach out to people with whom you have worked, they know you, and they are interested in your progress, so they will give you the right input. But it is like this, my friend: if I go and ask a school dropout whether I should continue studying in school, what will happen? Dropout. That was just on the lighter side. I'm not sure whether you got the joke or not. So reach out,
There are
ask for help.
questions in the chat box. There are questions in the chat box.
There are questions on the chat box. Okay. How do you know more about others and reduce hidden area? How do you know more about others? Okay, so let's say if I'm working with Patel Saab, I would know about him, right? So because when we work about 8, 9, 10 hours together, there are so many things that we understand that this person has these abilities or does not have those abilities. So we share. And then because you would want that person to do well, because you are a well wisher of that person, you would go and share that feedback with that person. So how do we know more about others? Is by spending time with them, by living together, by staying together, by working together. But then many times we are afraid of giving feedback. Ajit Saab, we say, मेरा क्या लेना देना, मुझे नहीं करना है, वो उसका काम है, वो जाने, उसका काम जाने. So that is not the right approach. Please remember, you are not criticizing someone, you are helping that person identify blind spots. Hence, the language that we choose to use matters, the words that we choose to speak matters. More than that, the tone with which we give feedback matters. The body language that we have while we give that feedback also matters. So spending time is a great way to knowing about others. Think about, even in family, we have our opinions about people in our family, but we seldom talk about it. Why don't we talk about it? So let me write a statement, and I'm not very good in writing on a chat box, but let me attempt. Let me, as I type, let me ask you the question: if there is no conflict, what does it mean? The absence of conflict.
Means the
If
absence of progress.
the absence of conflict is not harmony, is apathy. It is apathy. You can go and check more about this by checking the meaning of these words. I don't care. Apathy is I don't care. तू तारो काम कर, हूँ मारू काम करेस. तू अपना काम कर, मैं अपना काम करूँ. You don't disturb me, I don't disturb you. That's unfortunately the reality even in families. So we will have to, I'm not saying get into conflicts, but we will have to do some difficult discussions together. We will have to get into conversations together. We will have to do what I call crucial conversations, difficult discussions, because we want that other person to do well. And hence, if you were attending my sessions, I said about 3 or 4 Saturdays back when we were talking about the importance of mentors. I said we can learn in one of two ways in life. We can learn either by making mistakes or we can learn from mentors. And I also made that statement that mentors can be tormentors. Mentors will be tough with you, will be really tough with you. And that is how we reduce that quadrant of the unknown zone. Right. So if there are no more questions, this is what I wanted to share with you. And we will not have time to do the EQ model. So maybe next Saturday we will cover
Anand,
the.
Anand,
Sorry.
that conflict in the family has increased due to social media because we are not spending quality time with family members.
I agree with you, Hasmukh bhai. 100% agree with you. 100%
Yeah,
agree.
thank you.
And
Thank you.
one of the things that, building upon what Hasmukh bhai just said, one of the things that I urge all of you, I can't order because that is not the right thing, but I wish I could. I urge all of you is to stay away from social media one day every week. Please limit your time on the social media. Do not become slaves to your mobile phones. Get real in life. Don't live a virtual life. We are constantly on the social media, right? So be disciplined, and go ahead and build meaningful relationships. And you cannot build meaningful relationship if there is an absence of communication. But look at people in a restaurant, at homes. Everyone is on their phones. No one seems to be talking to each other. And the unfortunate suicide of that film star has triggered a discussion. But why are we waiting for a film star to commit suicide to start that discussion? Every 40 seconds, someone somewhere in the world is committing suicide. And if you talk about that film star, he had millions of followers on his social media, millions. But who was there that he could even talk to? Who was there in terms of relationships? Right? So Hasmukh bhai is absolutely right. The fabric of communication has collapsed because we don't communicate. We do not want to talk. We do not want anyone to tell us what we don't like to listen. And I know so many youngsters that they are not open to correction. મને કશું બોલવાનું નહીં. मुझे कुछ नहीं बोलने का. मैं जैसा करता हूं, करती हूं, मैं करूंगा या करूंगी. Oh, that's arrogance, and arrogance will kill you faster than anything else. Right? So what I want to do is, if you have no other questions, next Saturday we will start again an amazing session. I hope all of you will benefit from this. This is understanding the emotional quotient. And research says that all engineers, and many of you on the call are engineers and graduates and postgraduates. So research says that an average engineer or a graduate or a postgraduate will have an IQ of about 115. Let's say, put a broad range, 115 to 120 will be the IQ of everyone on the call and outside as well. And research says that there is no correlation between a higher IQ and a successful life. So what is the secret of success? I'm not talking about success in terms of money. I'm not talking about success in terms of power. I'm not talking in terms of success in terms of position and privileges and all that. So it is